So I guess
Cool.
you guys said that we wanted to start with introductions, right?
Yeah.
All right, so you guys are free to start with your introductions.
Okay. Oh, I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Writers Lounge. Today, actually, we're on episode 10 today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is episode
Oh,
10.
digits.
If we go
Double
back,
might be 10 or 11.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's 10. I think it's 10 because I went through the videos and I was numbering them, and I'm pretty sure the last one was 9. I was like, oh, double digits. It's kind of cool. Yeah, episode 10. My name is Nathaniel. Nate. Call me Nate. And I guess everyone else, you want to introduce yourselves?
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Lester.
Yep.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I am Kite. I'm just some random internet person.
Yeah. And we could go with Hex.
Hello. Yeah, it's me. You could call me Hex. Happy to be here.
And last but not least, you got Wilson. I am someone who has been, in the writing community for a while. Part of this group in particular, this group has helped me a lot, helped open my eyes a lot to many things, had many eye-opening discussions, many fruitful discussions, and that's why I hoped that we could share these discussions with many others in hopes to not only quote-unquote open other people's eyes, but allow for them to share their perspectives or opinions on things to open our eyes as well.
Actually, no, that's a good question, just for introduction's sake. Like, how long have everyone been writing? Should we go across and just quickly...
I'll go first.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
yeah. You go for it.
I've been writing for about 6 years. Well, actually, properly writing books. I've been sort of doing weird short stories for a few until I just decided to see if I could put one of my daydreams into an actual novel form. And I'm now in the process of writing 3 projects at once, which is as daunting as it sounds. And so I've had to come up with the 4th one, which I'm trying to put off.
I guess it gives you variety, though. I guess it gives you so you're not really focused on one thing, because I know sometimes that could be a bit, bit tedious.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely, especially if I get stuck on something, I could just put it off and then work on something else.
Okay, yeah. I guess I'll go next. Oh, I started. Gosh, when did I start? I started for it might be 12 years now.
Wow.
12 years, because when I started, I used to do stick animation. And I think at the time I really wanted to get my creativity out, and I was just like, oh well, at the time I was doing scripts for it. Okay, we'll just do this whole story as making up as I go along. After a while, I was like, well, I can't honestly get the ideas I've got in my head into a project and animation style in the amount of time I want to. It's gonna take forever. So I'm gonna write it down, and I just kind of got into novel writing from there, and just one thing led to another, and I've just been writing basically for that long, which is, I don't know, just for me it's just every day now. So think about it. Damn, it's been a minute.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. And met you guys, so it's awesome.
I think it's been about the same amount of time for me, or potentially even more. I've always been someone who's loved a good story, and I could always weave a good one. Or, okay, no, I can't say that, because I can't say I could always weave a good one, because back when I was younger, all I really did was just do a lot of weird fan fictions in my heads with the action figures I used to buy growing up. That's what I used to do. And then I got it in my head. Relatable. And I got it to the point where I was thinking, I think what I really want to do is to get into the animation industry. And if I'm lucky, maybe I can go to Japan and maybe make some of my concepts real. But then it got to the point where it was like, I'm going to have to start to write things down. So I started doing comic strips when I was around 13 or so. That's when I really started getting into it. But then those kind of started to fall through because my art wasn't the best. I still have some around here just to remind myself of where I've been. So officially, I say I started back when I was around 13. So now, where I am right now, as far as writing goes, I am closer to getting my stuff published more now than I've ever been with being on the last draft of everything. So I think personally, I don't really think it really is a matter of how long you've been in the game, because like I feel as though if you have a story to tell, just go for it, you know? Just go for
100%.
it.
Yeah, the time honestly
definitely.
doesn't. Yeah, time is not. That doesn't matter. It's just the journey in it, and
Yeah,
different. And
exactly.
so much stuff you learn from it, like over time. So, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, because like everyone is going to, you're going to have a phase where you're going to have like your basic ideas, or just like simple executions and everything, and it'll get to the point where you're like, hey, I want to start investing in more complicated stuff here and there. But how well you do it really depends on you, and depends on how your audience picks up on it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think even just like as you grow up, you change, isn't it? You change as a person. So then your tastes evolve. What you see is cool, and that stuff changes, and just
right. Your writing should evolve with you. The way how I see it, it should evolve.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've been writing for a long time as well. I think like I started writing around like when I was maybe 10 or 9 years old. And it started off as just a simple like school assignment, like you have to write a 3-chapter story. And that was like my first attempt at writing a story. Before I never even considered to like ever write a story. But on this assignment, I figured like, I may as well go all in. And I've always had these daydreams, or like, I've always daydreamed like stories or just imagined stuff. So I thought like, let's like imagine up a story and like write it out. This 3-chapter story ended up being 9 chapters, but I put so much like passion into it, even as a kid. I mean, retrospectively, it's probably not that well written, but for a kid, I put a lot of heart into that, and. The thing that kind of, reaffirmed or like kind of ignited my passion for writing was when my teacher like gave me feedback, and he said very particularly that he really liked it, and he felt like he was immersed in the story, and that it felt like a game basically, and that's what clicked for me. Like I was like, oh my god, my writing has influence in a way. My writing suddenly has influence, and I'm like, this is like, before I always thought like I want to share these worlds in my head to other people, and that was like it just clicked for me, like, okay, I found a medium now finally where I can like share whatever I have in my mind, and so it just started from there. So I was like 10, and now I'm like 22, so. So yeah, exactly, like 12 years, similar to Nate and Kite, I guess.
And I've been writing.
The difference is that I am turning into more of an old man every single day. How I wish I were still 22, my friend. I'm just joking. I'm not even 30 yet. I'm just joking.
So I'm currently hearing that there's some static in the background, and it's not coming from anyone in particular. So I'll slightly be working on some audio things, but at the same time I'll sort of answer the question. I have been writing for about as long as Lester, 6 years now. I started writing when I was 18. It's funny, my desire to write actually came from almost finishing Naruto and being almost disappointed with a lot of the things that it seemed like he was going to do and didn't do. And I was like, the story was going to be like, or it was shaping up to be one of my favorites, and then he dropped the ball on so many things that he had established early on with the directions that he was taking. I was like, well, I really like these directions, and they're not in his story. I might as well put them in my story. And then the ideas evolved from there over the last 6 years into still taking some of the core from that, but it has it's obviously become its own thing. But so what I'm hearing is that when I speak it sounds fine, but everyone else's audio has
my
cracking.
side, I didn't hear anything like static.
Which is weird.
I don't hear anything static either.
that issue wasn't there before, so I'm not sure what's causing it.
There's probably some interference.
Yeah. Not sure.
I think I had another question coming stringing off that. I know we had some questions.
Right.
What was it? I had another question. It's lost to me right now.
We're probably going to talk about the subject of maturity, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember your topic. One of your topics was about the illusion of world building or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Probably, I don't know. We'll maybe touch on the. See, we'll touch the other ones first, maybe, because I remember that was brought up first, and that seemed a good springboard point. Because right off the top of my head, it's not like I wouldn't say got so much questions about that, but just a discussion, which is fine. So maybe, yeah. So should we? I don't know. Should we start with the questions, or is I think Will are you still trying to sort the audio?
Yeah, I'm still working on the audio.
I vote for the questions because I feel the little maturity subject that we saw on the app with the blue bird is worth a full conversation by itself.
Yeah.
For those of you in the audience who were paying attention to that this week, the Attack on Titan discourse, you may have encountered this thread somewhere, or the Sonic or the Shadow the Hedgehog video about it. Let's just say I had some thoughts on that. We all did.
That encapsulates it really well, doesn't it?
It really does. Like,
yeah.
we're not gonna pull any punches. Like, we will make sure to keep it Twitch appropriate naturally, but I'm going to, let's say, I'm not gonna bury the hatchet.
Oh yeah, do it, gotta do that. Because it's interesting. Because it's just like, I don't know. In my head, it's just a very childish mindset. It's really ironic because they want to sound like they feel like, oh, saying this is like we've grown up, but ironically, it's childish. Because
It really is.
Like story, could you really think about it? Yeah, most of these stories. Who are these stories? They're made. Okay, the story may be made for kids. Okay, cool. But who's making the story? It's a fully grown adult.
Exactly.
And, you can fit really deep themes into a child's thing. What have you seen Incredibles? Hello.
Exactly.
I can't. I watched recently. There's things in there that now that I'm an adult, I understand and I appreciate it more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I just can't wait to go ham on that subject. Like, oh boy, I'm probably gonna bring up a show that everyone and their mothers hates, including me. But I think I might bring it up just the same.
I've got two shows I can bring up. They're
Wilson is checking the audio, I think.
I'm sorry.
okay.
Can you repeat it?
You're good. I can easily. Yeah, it's gone now.
Sweet.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know. That's my main take on it. Like, it's just because then if you think like that, you're just kind of holding yourself off from really good shows that can teach you some really great things.
Exactly.
Because it's meant to be for kids. Well, okay, then cool. Then you basically hamstrung yourself right there. Because there are a lot of great shows that are meant to be quote unquote for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And
I still watch classic SpongeBob. How could you not?
How can you not?
SpongeBob is jokes, man.
SpongeBob is legendary.
Right, man. SpongeBob was great.
I recently rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender, like maybe last year. You saw my tweets on that.
I did.
Yeah.
I need to do that. Yeah.
It made me realize. Yeah.
Just how long it took me to actually watch that show.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I have, I could say it is one of the most well-written shows I've watched.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it is actually kind of crazy. There is so much you can, like, it's kind of ridiculous. You can learn like half of how to write fantasy. You can pretty much learn almost everything how to learn fantasy from.
You can write, like, cause I think it's like goes a bit into like this whole maturity question because like some of the themes in it, like there's a lot of like lighthearted, especially the first season, but like especially as it goes on, and even in the first season, it touches on some like pretty serious serious matters. Like like when Aang first tried to learn firebending, and then he got carried away and like burnt Katara. That was like a fairly shocking moment for what was like, you know, a kid show. My opinion.
Yeah. Or when Aang went and found out all his air nomads were dead. It's like,
exactly.
It's like, yeah, sure, it's a kids show, but then it's how you go about showing these themes, these darker themes.
Yeah, because
that's what really makes the big difference. You can still show these dark things, but you can just it's execution. But,
remember the face stealer, bro?
Oh god, that's terrifying.
Yeah, the face stealer was horrifying, man, for a kids show.
So, well, since we're, I'm sorry.
Unless I was gonna say something.
Yeah,
because I'm someone who is out of internet drama because a lot of it is absolute garbage. I've only seen the tweet, and my opinion is like if you have a show that is entirely like blood, guts, and gore, that is not. I don't think that's a mature. I think that's edgy at best.
Yeah,
and depending on how it's used, juvenile.
Maybe, yeah, exactly.
Because like I'm not like was one of my favorite because I grew up in like the 2000s. One of my favorite game is Dirge of Cerberus. I know. I love that game. I was too young to know what that everyone else hated it, and also the internet didn't exist. It didn't exist as it did now.
Yeah.
Even now I would not call that a mature because a lot of it is quite silly. But I like there's nothing wrong with like that sort of edgy sense, like especially if you know what it is. But I think like this whole thing like maturity is I think a maturity is if you know what your subject is. So one of my favorite examples is Berserk, because basically saying you can't have friendship, love, and any like soft moments. It has to be blood, guts, and gore. If you take out everything from that first section and just have the blood and gore in Berserk, it will not. There's no way it would be so endearing, and there's no way it would have like, a vigil in Final Fantasy XIV, which I'm proud to say I actually took part in.
Yeah, it'll just be an edgy fest, isn't it? It'll just because besides the quiet moments where like there's effective and that stuff happening, it's literally just Guts being a badass and just literally just being like a Chad and killing everything.
Yeah, like honestly, and it just would not punch as much, and Guts would just be like, just like I'd say your modern isekai character because God, I hate
pretty
that.
much, to be honest.
So like,
it's just the sort of quiet moments where you see Guts go from this abused child to a hardened mercenary to a staunch figure in the Band of the Hawks to a good friend to them to this half-mad berserker leaving a pile of bodies in his wake to a very solemn and sort of regretful figure, but who will do anything to protect not just Keska, but all of his new comrades. And you'll lose. And if you just like focus on just blood and guts in Berserk, you will just miss out on so much of why I personally love Berserk.
Right. Like, if I could actually bring up the tweet in question so everyone can follow along. I will not mention the person's name. Don't really want people to get torn to pieces around here on the internet, even if they kind of bring the ratio on themselves. The tweet goes as follows: heroes, optimism, brightness, positivity, trust, morality, friendship, bonds are concepts I absolutely hate. Seems to me like this person has never had a friend before. To steal a certain quote from Woody of Kingdom Hearts 3, something tells me you've never been loved before. Next, I prefer more mature concepts like anti-heroes, protagonists who are also antagonists. I'm going to talk about that line in just a minute. That's important. Put a pin on that for a second. Genocide, depression, sadness, loss, betrayal, PTSD, moral relativism, and grayness. That's probably why I like seinen more than shonen, to be honest. It's just a demographic. It doesn't make a difference. A story being intended for kids or for adults will obviously make a difference in literally every aspect. Now, I'm gonna deconstruct that for a second. Exactly. You see, I already have my beef with the concept of heroes, but it's nowhere near to what this user is. Wait, what's that sound?
I think that might be James.
Oh, sorry.
Lester.
Sorry, that's me. Sorry.
No problem, you're fine. So I have a problem with the concept of heroes by itself in some way, because the thing is, a hero in one nation is a butcher in another. That's just how it goes. Like, you might see this person as your savior, the people on the receiving end will always see them as a butcher. So the concept of heroism in itself, to me, in some aspects, is dehumanizing to the person involved. But that's another topic entirely. I'll just stay focused on the tweet overall. The thing is, I can actually point to what my problem with heroism is in a way that actually makes sense to me. But this person just flat out says that these are concepts that he absolutely hates because he doesn't feel that they're quote-unquote mature. How do we define what is mature? Because the fundamental issue that I feel a lot of these shonen versus seinen types have is that their engagement with media is pretty much limited to this binary and nothing more. They don't seem to understand that this doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not a story is intended for adults or intended for children. Because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily a matter of the age of the target audience in mind, more so of the story that we're trying to tell. Now, I know that we've been mentioning Avatar: The Last Airbender for a reason. That tends to come up pretty much on every podcast we have, but I'd like to take it a step further. Like, we can go to Lord of the Rings if we want to, because Lord of the Rings is not especially for adults in a sense. It doesn't have to be. You have a lot of children who grew up reading those books. They weren't necessarily intended 100% for adults nor for children. In fact, C.S. Lewis even went on to mention that if you as an adult are quivering at the idea of a story that is intended for a younger audience and you dismiss it as automatically young, that says more about your immaturity than the actual media that you're criticizing for being childish. Like, why do you as an adult have to feel as though the themes of friendship, morality, and trust has to be inherently childish? It doesn't. It doesn't need to be. In fact, no theme by itself can really be childish. It really can't. Like, you can have stories that deal with depression, sadness, PTSD, and all the above, and guess what? They can still come across as quote-unquote immature and brain dead because the person writing it has no sense of subtlety. In that case, that's not the theme. That's just the writer dropping the ball. But this user does not seem to make the distinction between the two, because they're simply trapped within this shonen and seinen binary. And I feel that in and of itself is really emblematic of how a lot of people go about consuming media like Attack on Titan that genuinely deal with some mature themes, yes, but the themes are not mature based on the idea of them alone. Of course, it goes back to execution, but it also goes back to how all of these themes are portrayed through the eyes and lens of the characters in question.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of that because specifically what you said when you were talking about these are just concepts and that's what they are, and you said that you said specifically, how do we define what's mature? And I was like, that's kind of the exact point of where my problem with this tweet comes from, is that they're simply listing off ideas and leaving them as if they have an inherent quality or trait assigned with them. For example, like as you said, heroes. Like, what about them? You just said heroes. Like, heroes are good people. Heroes are not really like, you told us nothing, and what this person essentially is saying, without me trying to insult them, is I only like dark things or things that I think are dark. But the problem with what's quote unquote dark is these ideas that he labeled as childish or immature can be considered dark if you were to take those angles or portrayals of these ideas. For example, you can take a something like trust, morality, and or not even that, but friendship. You can take the idea of friendship, which oftentimes is seen as a really good thing, and you turn that idea of friendship, of what it really means to be a friend. You put maybe two people in a scenario where, let's say, one of your friends commits a crime and is a wanted person and comes to you for help, maybe putting your family at risk. Now you're in a position of friendship where this, well, what they would consider light or immature concept is now put to the test, where
Exactly.
you're like, okay, do you weigh this person's friendship over your entire life because you two are friends? Like, it really calls into question how deep your friendship is. But this person
Exactly.
would see friendship and be like, oh, this is an immature concept, even though
Exactly.
what makes these things immature or mature are the situations at which these themes may come out in, because a kid wouldn't necessarily relate to that specific scenario, but they could still relate to something like what you see in a lot of children's cartoons, where your friend may steal something from the store and you get in trouble for them lying, and now you're in your head wondering if you want to snitch on them. It's the same thing, but it's more relatable in a children's sense, but you're still putting the same concept to the test. And that's sort of what my problem was with this tweet.
And if I can take that subject a step further,
I think it might be Hex's. We're going to try and keep you in turn. So.
Oh yeah, you're right. I heard that.
Yeah,
Go for it.
if you check the text, then you'll see like. But yeah, you can go right after. I'm gonna try and make mine as quick as possible. Oh yeah. Anyways, so I want to give a small take on the whole maturity thing. I think like a great example I think is from my own writing that I've done for one of my stories. The biggest thing that I've learned from my own story, and about like the whole balance between having a story lighthearted or dark and mature, is that you can't just make things dark for the sake of it being dark. You can't make things edgy for the sake of being edgy, because it will really like come back to bite you in the butt. What is it? A quick example is basically there was a point in my story where I intended for a side character to become temporarily evil. He would be corrupted by this one villain. And like slowly become evil over time, and then like it's up to the main character to try and put some sense into him and try and release him from the influence of this one villain that's corrupting him. The issue that I made in this story is that at this point, before that, it was a little bit lighthearted, a little bit dark, but mostly lighthearted. When I came to this point, it started to become a little too serious and a little too dark, and I was more like I was in the mood for it to be edgy. And I did something with the character that went evil, where he just straight up mass murdered a bunch of people, and it was kind of like in the sidelines. And I just did it for like edgy purposes, without realizing that, oh no, how can I make this character redeem himself if he's just gonna kill a bunch of people? You can't do that. You can't just do these edgy stuff without the repercussions in the writing. If my intention was to make this guy good again, it's not gonna be that easy anymore if I make him just straight up kill people.
That's a hard sell.
Yeah, it's a hard sell. You can't do that.
I've read that. I actually remember that.
Yeah, you remember that.
I definitely see what you mean.
Yeah, so I've learned a lot. Like and then the thing was, there was a certain point in the story where like I was making it dark and dark, and then suddenly my mood for the story changed. I was like, I want to make it lighthearted again. I don't feel like going edgy anymore, and that's where I suddenly couldn't write my story anymore, because the atmosphere and my own mood of the story like could not connect, and I had no motivation. I hit a writer's block because of it. See, you gotta be really careful like writing mature or lighthearted stories. You can't just write like dark stories for the sake of it. It's got to have meaning to it, like legit meaning.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say.
Just saying something on that is, I think the only way to avoid something like that is to literally do not think about trying to write it either lighthearted or dark. Just try doing just write how you want to write. If it becomes dark, it will become dark naturally. Whereas if you just go whole ham and just try to make it like blood, guts, and gore, and then nothing bright and sunny, gonna hit that sort of problem when you decide not to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, and if I could bring it back to the subject of the friendship angle, the trouble with, like you said, the problem with that is that that's a very limited view to look at the situation overall here. The way how I have treated the subject of friendship with what I've dealt with now is that one of my characters has this want to maintain this status quo among the people he loves. So this means he's willing to do everything and anything to ensure that whatever bond they have can be maintained. But now we have a problem. Technically speaking, he's maintaining a lie. He's maintaining a lie. He's not being upfront with the people he loves. And now because of that, we now have to ask an obvious question here. What's going to happen when his loved ones figure out what he's actually doing? Is there going to be any chance that these guys can still be friends after what he's done? And I'm not talking about little things like, oh, I don't know, he stole someone's paycheck or so. No, this guy has actively gone around killing and maiming people and pretty much destabilizing any government he's able to do so for, all in order for his friends to live in a world that he deems to be the most peaceful. That's pretty messed up. Wouldn't you say that that's somewhat, I don't know, a mature application of friendship?
I would say so. I don't think they would say so, because friendship is inherently childish.
Exactly. Friendship is inherently childish. You guys all suck. I can't stand any of you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Nate wanted to say something.
What?
Hello? I was saying Nate wanted to say something.
Nate?
Oh, sorry. I thought.
Maybe his mic is muted. Is your mic muted?
He looks fine. Oh, looks like he's trying to speak, but
no, we can't hear
nothing's
you.
coming through.
Yeah, he's got like.
Hear me now, yeah?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay, awesome. All right, okay. So
Okay,
when it comes to stuff like maturity and the opposite spectrum of it, like lightheartedness, yeah, it all comes down to contrast. That's the thing. So you can't just focus on one thing, because if you focus on one thing too much, then it's a tone, and the tone will become tone deaf if that's all you're doing. So there's a contrast. There's a saying like, the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows, and that's the reason, because it's like you can't just make something. Well, you can make something dark, but if it's only dark, then all the audience is just gonna feel monotone to it. If the world you introduce them to is just gritty and dark and blah 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 from the start, then it's gonna say, well, that's just the default tone. Sure, and if that's all you're gonna do, you're not really gonna try like contrast it with lighter moments to make when it goes dark actually feel like you feel the missing, you feel the loss of that light or the contrast of that. Then you just got a monotone, boring show. That goes same with anything, any kind of media, any kind of whatever. Like if you have a tune and it's just the same tune all like for like 20 hours, it's gonna sound monotone. So there is this it's a contrast. You gotta balance it out with the friendship, with heroism. Like, it's not so much it's not so much dark because a guy killed 20 people. That's edgy. But if a guy who was like, I don't know, a family guy who was, he was a pacifist, and now he, for X, Y, Z reasons in the story, 20 people, and it messed him up. That's pretty dark. Because you had the contrast of, what he was like before, or what his worldview was like before. Now all of a sudden he's been thrown knee deep in his craziness. So there's that, and also I think another thing is like, it's funny because he says this about heroisms and stuff. I don't like these things, but the joke is, these things are like what help build community. Like these friendships, community, like all the stuff we're talking about, are positive things. these are things which kind of we try to strive towards to help keep, to help a community flourish. So if you're just talking about, oh yeah, dark stuff, about all light, it's just like, I don't know, what do you hate yourself? What's going on?
That's why I brought up the Woody from Kingdom Hearts 3 quote earlier. Yeah, it's like it's not even me trying to be mean or snide. It's just like, what has happened in your life to the point where you are so averse to somewhat positive themes that you're just so against the idea at that point.
Yeah. Because I get if it was to the point, if it was like you want something, a bit, in darker in tone, to probably feel certain things, learn something. Sounds like anything that's genuinely just seems, it's straight mature. Well, okay, sure, dude, but then, to what extreme is that? You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure the good shows, if there's any good shows he has in his list that have that that he would say has got those things in there, like he said, Senins, I guess Attack on Titan reviews, for example. Well, it has lighter moments. That's the reason why it works. It has, the world's a crappy place. I'm sure the Titans are eating, everyone like their freaking Skittles thing, all that stuff. But it has, and again, Eren family in it, and then what he lost, and it's showing it's the loss of the good that makes a thing dark. It's not just, it's dark for being dark's sake. Then it's just edgy. So it's just it's contrast.
Yeah, and what I wanted to add to that, with the contrast, is something that really actually does contrast really well is the Dark Souls series. They Miyazaki is, I feel like he's kind of mastered this idea of putting you in a world that is extremely bleak, but giving it a certain level of charm by giving you respite areas. A lot of the respite areas are so, and they're so captivating that sometimes I'll find myself,
Fire Lake Shrine.
Exactly. I'll find myself just sitting at Fire Lake Shrine,
right,
and enjoying.
And also, sorry to interrupt you, but also Bloodborne, the Hunter's
Dream.
The Hunter's Dream.
Yeah.
It's so creepy, but it's also the only
oddly beautiful
place you have to destroy that's constantly killing you and vicious.
It's fine. Yeah, even in Dark Souls, it's extremely dark, but the idea of light is what brings hope to the world, and all the respite areas have a fire where you can rest. You can see the people who have been around you also resting. It's not extremely interactive, but it's oddly interactive in a way to be people are here too. And the only other time that that people are with you are when you see bloodstains, which means people died here, which kind of puts you on guard. But in there, you're people are resting here, people are chilling. You can see the weird builds people have and laugh at them. I don't know how, but it's an experience that it's really hard to explain. But it's that kind of stuff where,
because I think, I don't know. Yeah, because there's that again. There's that contrast. You have this dark world and everything, but it's literally but there's this hope of this, the light to help. They're hoping to help reset the world, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So it's that again. It's that contrast, and then the world's bleak and all these people died and everything. But even these small moments, you have this moment of respite where you can talk to people. Yeah, some of them are kind of going a bit insane, but they're quirky. And they're not trying to murder stab you unless you attack them. But anyway, so it's so there is this contrast again. So it's just what I consider a mature or more darker show. It's just when they either balance out the contrast with when there's when it's showing more hopeful moments, it contrasts to what reminding you more of what you lose. And that stuff. It will make it more clear that there's something you can lose through having these lighter moments. But sorry, I realize I'm through. But yeah,
okay.
Just for you.
Yes. Am I next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah, this is sort of changing the subject a little bit, but there's like one bit of the tweet that is a bit kind of rubs me the wrong way-ish, is the idea that he'll only accept like no power to him, like he'll only accept like anti-heroes or heroes that are antagonists.
Oh God.
Yeah, so my general. Okay, so I brought up Guts, and he is probably one of my favorite characters of all time. Another favorite of mine is also Zero from Drakengard, where she does feel like a villain. It is a very strange game, and I would not recommend it.
I stand Zero. I stand Zero.
Yeah. But I think like it's just the idea that she's presented as a hero right as an evil witch right from the start. She
And we love her for it.
so many people. But the more you go through the story, you start to see the bigger picture, and you realize, okay, so she's actually the reason why she's killing all her sisters is because of a reason. And then you see sort of when you fight after like a lot of arguably pretty tedious grinding, you get to the final section, and then and you just realize, okay, I have actually been doing the right thing. Because these girls, like the wave 4. So I'll bring the example of 4. So 4 is basically presented as just this meek, timid girl who's like begging Zero to stop slaughtering everybody, and then it sort of ends with Zero sort of kind of tricking her into thinking she's changed before brutally murdering her. As I said, like Drakengard is quite strange. But then you have like in the final encounter with 4, you see her like laughing, it's like a little girl, and then saying, "I just realized we don't have to be scared of this world, because once I kill everyone, there won't be anything left to be scared of." And then it's just in that moment where you see her, and you just see that this maniac here is the real 4. And just seeing like how Zero reacted, where she didn't like say anything snide or look back. All she just said was, "The flower's taking over." And then you just realize the gravity of it. So that's, I think, like, because as I said, like Drakengard is properly strange, but I think it handles that idea of positioning the protagonist as the bad guy in a way that doesn't like completely destroys things. But my issue with like that tweet is like the idea of just having, you know, a guy that's, because like I've gone through like a lot of like web novels just for fun, mostly just skimming them. A lot of them have these sort of protagonists. They are honestly some of the most vile people you can imagine. Even like anime, like there's like redo it, like just what I've seen of redo of the healer.
Oh my gosh!
That guy.
Yeah.
Oh, the pain. The pain.
Oh, that guy is an irredeemable bastard.
Yeah, he's
And
just a piece of turd.
Okay, because your protagonist is essentially your view of the world.
Mm.
I don't want a protagonist who is one of the most vicious, vile and insufferable dude imaginable, especially when there is nothing left else to his character besides the redo of the healer is stuff I don't think I can actually say.
Yeah, it's
redo. So that's my take on that. That's just my general take on that. So I think it's just how you do it. If like there's a reason why they're like, because like with Zero, if there's a reason why she's doing all of that, and there's actually a lot more into her character than just, you know, the murderess that you see, the swearing murderess that you see in the beginning, and also like in Drakengard, there are just a lot of lighthearted moments, and some of them that generally made me laugh.
Yeah,
and then like I'm bringing a redo of the healer, and also like Ari Ferretta, I'm just a guy who's kind of a bit like angry for angry's sake, badass for badass's sake, to the point where if you try to do a quiet moment, it just comes off as tilted and awkward because you haven't really flushed them out.
Yeah, I don't. From what I this from what I understand with Redo is apparently he's getting revenge to the people.
I have not watched it.
Yeah, like medium, but I know enough to say that you're still. From what I understand, yeah, is he's getting revenge on the people who messed him up to this point because he time traveled. But then it gets you thinking, well, you time traveled. You
time travel.
He basically goes through all this. Yeah. So
yeah, he just like all that stuff happened to him again, and then
yeah. What? Excuse me?
What? What? I'm just
like some of the things that happened to him is just, what is wrong with you? That's just apparently it got like a lot of people watched that. I don't know. I guess it's someone's enjoying it, but
I think
I say if you do it, like more power to you, but I like I hate like especially if it's people that absolutely have nothing left to them. Like I said, like Guts is such a varied character, and he's so incredibly well written that there's more to him than just a guy swinging an oversized sword. And then just some heroes are just so much like anti-heroes written like that are just kind of just fall completely flat because they're either completely uninteresting or they're just irredeemable bastards.
Just one note, really, isn't it?
And
yeah, exactly.
And the problem with that tweet is that it uses the phrase antagonist and protagonist incorrectly. That's the thing. So the thing is, and I wanted to talk more about the type of bleak world, but since since Lester just lampshaded the problem, I figured I'd just bring this up. You see, when you have a protagonist and an antagonist, protagonist and antagonist do not automatically mean hero or villain. They don't. The thing is, the antagonist is someone who opposes the protagonist. So if you say things like Eren is both the antagonist and protagonist of Attack on Titan, no, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. Eren is not trying to stop himself from completing his own goal. That's not how any of that works. Now, in theory, you could have something like that working. Let's say you have a character that has dissociative identity disorder. You have one side you have one personality that wants one potential occurrence, but then you have the other personality who's fundamentally against that. In that sense, you do have a story in which a protagonist is also their own antagonist at the same time. Or rather, your own worst enemy is you. But that's not what's happening for Attack on Titan's case here, like this tweet is trying to imply. So when you say things like, this guy is the antagonist and protagonist at the same time, it doesn't work. You are actively lying to yourself and everyone around you if that's what you're trying to sell. Like, and to kind of bring it back to the previous subject, because again, that was just bothering me. In theory, you could have a world that's completely bleak and grim and there's absolutely no hope, and I've actually seen a property like that, if you can believe it. I don't know how many of you have delved into the 80s anime boom. I sure have on my spare time, and I've watched Violence Jack.
The only thing I can
stuff like Doberman or something like that.
The North Star game.
Yeah, like...
Which is technically written like the 80s.
Like, I went knee-deep into Violence Jack, because I kept hearing about how, oh, it is a certified masterpiece, and let me tell you, that is the most bleak property I've ever seen in anything. There's absolutely no clarity, no peace, no anything. It's just one case of violent atrocity right after another. I mean, the first OVA pretty much starts with a kid who has to eat a cockroach on screen, and then he gets the crud beaten out of him not too long after that. And I'm just like, what is the point of all this? I mean, it's edgy, it's dark, and it's grim, it's gritty. There's none of that, quote-unquote, shonen crap to be seen. But I don't really have much of a motivation to keep watching this, because I don't care about anyone else. I don't care about anyone on screen. I don't have a point of contact. Like, when you play games like Final Fantasy 13, we're talking a lot about games today. When we talk about when we play games like
on stream,
yeah, but we are on
Spirit.
But to be fair, we are on Twitch, so I think we're well within our rights today. So
fair enough.
when we play games like Final Fantasy 13, at least for me, it was really hard for me to really connect to Lightning on an emotional level because she's always so darn miserable when she's on screen.
So
I mean, don't get me.
I'll definitely accept that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Her situation is really messy, and I relate to it. But the trouble is, when Lightning is in a bad mood and when she's breaking down, I don't feel bad because I've never seen Lightning happy. It doesn't hurt me. Because I'm like, yeah, Lightning, that kind of sucks, honey, but this is kind of like your permanent state of being, so it doesn't hurt me. But then when I play Final Fantasy IX and I see Zidane just completely shut down when he finds out the truth of what he's meant to be,
yeah.
I'm like, Zidane, buddy, are you okay? Zidane, you okay? You want to come over here for a sec? I got hugs. I got 50 of them if you need them. Like,
yeah, it's the moment. I know that moment. It's sort of where he basically just shuts down, but then all of it's like a really dark moment, and like it what is essentially looks like a nightmare.
Exactly.
Then you have all his friends like basically just like despite him constantly trying to push them away, they keep coming back. Like
keep coming back.
Steiner, who would all throughout the early game constantly all of a bad influence and tried to get rid of him.
Exactly.
Try to
comfort him and to remind him that exactly that he still has a place here. I mean, no one can control the circumstances of their birth. You might be born to do something terrible, but you don't have to live that way. Like, that's powerful. That's what you would call a power of friendship moment. That doesn't bother me at all because, again, it fits in with the theme of the game, and not only that, but I've now seen Zidane at his lowest, and now I've seen him come out of that because of the people in his life. Yeah. That's beautiful writing. Like, I feel what we need to get in order to bring the audience down is for us to at least know what the character was like when they were happy. If we can at least know what they were like when they were happy, then these things hurt more. Then these things actually can actually get a reaction out of me. Like when I watch the Castlevania series from Netflix, that show has every reason to be stupidly grim dark based on all of its setups and everything else. But Castlevania knows when to scale back, poke fun at itself, aim out, lampshade certain negative traits about each and every character, give us a laugh, and then later on break our hearts just as quickly. Like, that's the shape of life, if you ask me. The shape of life. Yeah, the shape of life is not just sadness and depression and just bleakness. The shape of life is it's more than that.
It's contrast between both of them. That's what makes the moments hit in the first place, because you've experienced the opposite. Like,
exactly.
You appreciate, like, when you're in the desert and you're thirsty, you're dying of thirst, you appreciate water a hell of a lot more than when you have it. That's just how we're built, and it's to celebrate only one of that in the human experience and not another. It's just doing everyone in this stuff, doing yourself in this. Like, it's really naive way of looking at things. But
yeah. What was it? There was a lot of stuff that people spoke today. Like my head is all over the place because I have so much stuff. I kind of forgot what I wanted to say. I think I'll start with no, it's fine. What was it? But right, you mentioned like one of the characters like in Final Fantasy and stuff, and it reminded me of like another RPG game which was Lost Odyssey, where the main character, Kaim Argonar, like he in the first impression, he's like textbook Sasuke, you know? Like that's what he seems like on the surface.
Like that opening, like especially just seeing him cut down these enemy soldiers, and I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I mean he seems like a very serious person and everything. So it's like I don't know. You'd think like maybe there's not much depth to it, but he actually has a lot of depth, and it's shown through the stories that you or the dreams that you have, and the dreams are like the peak of the game. That's like excellent writing, but basically through the dreams you learn that he has like a lot of character.
Yeah. For context, for those who haven't played it, it's basically there are moments in Lost Odyssey where you'll get like a text-based novel,
visual novel, yeah,
visual novel, and and as Hex said, it shows essentially more of Kaim than he initially did when you started the game, and like even like later on, like moments like especially like when he reunites with his long lost daughter and then sees her die, that you just see the range of emotions he had.
Yeah.
That. And then the change that sort of undergoes, like now he has his grandkids. He has a reason to live.
Yeah. It's a very touching story and everything. I don't know. I had a lot of stuff, but it kind of escaped my mind. So that like the only thing I could talk about right now was like Kaim as another example of like how to make a more in-depth character who looks very mature, but they also have a very soft side, and obviously if it was just serious, it would never work. If it was always dark, it would never work. It always has these light moments that make everything have more depth.
I think because like the people around him, you have Seth, who's like very upfront, very quite demanding at times. Then you have Jansen, who's pretty much all over the place. And
I love Jensen. Jensen is the best. Jensen is the best.
Then you have the kids, and then later on you get two other characters that also like even stuff out. Those two aren't my favorites, but they definitely like adds a bit more depth to, especially like they bounce off Kaim much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I actually wanted to add. Because I wanted to bring it back to the tweet a little bit, but and I want to preface this because I feel like we didn't preface this, is that if you guys have a preference for this kind of thing, then that's not an issue. More power to you. But I think it's the people we're specifically highlighting, the people who are being pretentious about it or have a belief that this type of writing is superior. And if you have, superior writing, then your writing is automatically inferior. We're going at these people. But one person that I really wanted to talk about that kind of highlights this for me, and I'm going the anime route because we've been in video games the whole time, rightfully so, but I want to talk about my favorite character of all time, which is Sakata Gintoki. He is the embodiment of being both of these things put together, where the reason why I think he's such a good character is he's an adult, but he's not what he's not what you think an adult is when you're a kid. Like, and what I mean by that is a lot of times when you're a kid or when you're a teenager, you have this image of what an adult is and what an adult should be. And a lot of times when you reach that age, when I reached that age of adulthood, I realized that I didn't lose a lot of the things that I did when I was younger. I still make a lot of jokes.
Yeah,
I have
still a child at heart.
I have a very like chill personality. Like and that kind of stuff reflects in Gintoki's behaviors, where he handles mature things very well, but he's also a freaking idiot. Where
exactly
that's an understatement.
Yeah, he does some of the dumbest things where he's such a bad influence, but you got to remember that he is a human being first, not an adult first, or so therefore the things that he goes through are going to be childish things, like even wanting Valentine's Day chocolates as an adult, something that you normally see in kids series, but at the same time it stems from darker things that happened in his life that show up in childish, quote unquote, childish things. And I think that, that kind of, he kind of encapsulates that for me, where it's, these characters that have just many sides to them, where you see they're mature in the times of their struggles, but they're not this stereotypical idea of what an adult is, because that really doesn't exist. I mean,
Doesn't true, yeah.
Oh, it can't exist.
Yeah, like a lot of us, I mean, we're all at least above 20, and we're all playing video games. I know I'll go drink a beer with my friends and just chill and talk, and like, or I'll do stupid things, the same stupid things that I did when I was younger. Like, there are some things that I may have outgrown, but that's only because I've been doing it so long that I don't want to do it anymore. But it's not necessarily, oh, I'm 23 years old, so I just shouldn't do this. Like, I mean, like, yeah, there's certain things according to, like, moral code and stuff like that, but outside of that, I don't shut down certain experiences just because of how many years I've been on this earth.
Yeah, we can't live that way. Like, if you ask me, that's something I've been coming to terms with recently myself, because I've come to really look at what I have been writing myself lately. It was like, I started this weird project because I wanted to pay homage to Gundam and all these other mecha anime I watched growing up. And I was thinking I always got the question of, well, don't you think it's a little childish for you to be writing about giant robots and stuff? And I'm like, probably, but does that even matter? Does it even matter if it's childish or not? Because, like...
someone who's just gone to Mecha, no, they're cool. I want to get a Barbatos.
Exactly. It's like, maybe it can come across as a little childish to you, but if that's where your position begins and ends with something, then I think your ability to engage with media or anything is probably very limited and just flat out skewered. It's just flat out skewered. Like, sorry if I cut you off though, Will. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, not really. I guess to just quickly add on to what you just said, it almost comes off like you're trying to impress someone, whereas somebody who really knows who they are and what they want to be don't really care about the things that they do, because in the end they're trying to enjoy their own life for themselves and no one else. And if me watching SpongeBob bothers you because it's childish, then that's on you. Like,
it's more about your obsession with wanting to look like an adult than anything else.
Yeah, it's more about your insecurities and what you think and should be. That's just that really boils down to.
And to continue from here, if I could point out something, one of my favorite visual novels that I've ever read is actually Disarray. That one is it is a cavalcade of stupidity. And the best part is that it knows it. Like, you have a visual novel where the premise is basically there is a secret superpowered group of Nazis who are coming to Japan to basically kill as many people as they can to bring back this Nazi warlord and all of that. It sounds serious and edgy, which it kind of is, but what keeps me coming back to Disarray is just how freaking ridiculous it knows that it is. Like, the Nazis within this visual novel are absolutely ridiculous to watch. The writing that goes behind everything else, it's serious enough, but when you peel back the layers, Disarray knows that it's a ridiculous romp. It could really wax poetic on how nasty and how gory and how violent it is, but it never really does it in a way in which it's making you go, oh, this is so grim dark. No, it does it in a way that makes you go, oh my god, this has got to be the most power fantasy ridiculous crud that I could write when I was 15 years old on a budget. And I love it for it. I really do. I came into this visual novel not expecting anything. I mean, yes, there is some philosophy here and there, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm not into Disarray because it has all these intense philosophical themes, which it does, and they are very good. But what I love about it is that it's so perfectly honest with itself that it's just nothing but ridiculous. And I love it. I feel that's the kind of honesty that I like to see in stories.
Mhm.
Yeah, you might be,
I'm definitely for that.
it might come across as childish to some people, yes. But at the end of the day, I'm having fun. I want to have fun with the stuff that I'm looking at. I mean, I want to feel something. I want to laugh, I want to cry, but at the end of the day, I need to at least feel something. And that's what I get whenever I look at VNs like Disarray, like I mentioned, or anything that some people might call, well, that's kind of childish, don't you think? Yes, maybe, but that depends on what you consider the realm of adulthood. Because is not the realm of adulthood more responsibilities, more to engage with as you're getting older? Don't you think exactly? And don't you think you as an adult should care very little about what your fellow man thinks of what you engage in if it makes you happy? I kind of think you're more of a I think you're more of a mature person if you actually like what you like and you're not ashamed of it.
Mhm.
I never care about what anyone says.
Exactly.
If I like something,
Yeah.
screw everyone else. I'm
Exactly.
doing what I like.
Exactly. Maturity, in my opinion, as far as writing is concerned, it's a misnomer. I don't really think any writer should really set out there with just the intention to be mature. I don't feel that's what any of us need to do. We don't need to be so concerned with trying to meet the impossible standards of somebody else behind the screen. We can't do that. Nobody can. So it falls to you to make sure, hey, is my story going to leave a mark on someone? How am I going to make sure that my story can leave a mark on someone? Like, that's why that tweet just hurts me on a personal level, because it's like, I know the show that they're talking about. We all do, and that show means a great deal to a lot of us, and we don't love it by itself because it's quote-unquote mature. We don't love it because the main character is the alleged protagonist and antagonist, which again is a very stupid thing to say. We don't like it because of that. We like it because it delivers its themes in a compelling manner, my dude. That's it. That's totally it. Like, what more can I say than that, right?
Yeah, my general principle is if you want to write a story, just write it for you. Don't shouldn't be for anyone else. If it's
Just do it.
Just do it. Like if it
Naki's
is like if it ends up being like dark grim fantasy, if you basically just read it in what I did. So essentially, my main story I'm writing is essentially an isekai. I wrote that without any knowledge of all the tropes that I absolutely hate, and initially intended to be like a shonen romp. So I essentially wrote it in a complete vacuum from how the genre has evolved in a way that, for me personally, I absolutely hate. So I think like that's just if you want to write a mature story, then my advice is don't just write what you want. If it's mature, then
Great.
it's mature. Great. Then you've achieved your goal because you've essentially written something on your own without. I would say like without like outside influences, but of course you do need outside influences.
Yeah, like outside influence just comes to the territory. Yeah. Mark Twain said it best. Outside influences are just inherent to how you're going to approach many of your experiences as well as your writing experience. That's why the whole originality thing by itself, it just falls dead on its ass, because you're going to be influenced by something, and then it falls to you to filter those experiences into something that is your own. Now,
From your own viewpoint, sort of thing.
exactly, and whether or not that is 100% original to someone, that's on them. But it is not your job to worry about being quote unquote original. Just don't do it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because you can't control what people have read. Like there are people who are gonna, let's say, let's say people who play like Dark Souls first, and then they'll read like, I don't know, Claymore, and then they get to Berserk, and they're like, yeah, I read Berserk, but it was kind of stuff I've seen already, and like it may have come before those, but that doesn't matter because this person read the other series first. So it's not your job to try to worry about writing something people haven't seen, because you're not going to be able to control what they've read before. And I think me personally, I don't. When I think of originality, I think of, do I get a glimpse into this author when I read their work? And if the answer is no, then yes, I'll call that work unoriginal. But if it's yes, I get a glimpse into this author, I kind of get who they are, the things that they like, the things that they're influenced by, what they believe, then I will call that work original, whether it's something I've seen before or not, because every person has their own experiences and in ways of interpreting things in different phases of their own lives. They're going to see things differently as they get older. And you can see that in one person that I always say this is Araki. In Araki, it's very clear because he does his work in parts. And in every part, you can see the phases of his life, what he was watching, what media he was consuming, what beliefs he may have picked up along the way in his journey of life, and he puts that in his work.
Yeah, he doesn't settle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
I've been recently watching JoJo as well, and I can see the transformation in each part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why, oh no, go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because in JoJo, like you see like the original sort of 80s, the 80s style of like dudes with big arms. But then as you get further and further, particularly like after part 4, the characters begin to really slim down, and the emphasis is on the protagonist, but more like the collective whole. To the point where you get to even like because part 4 has multiple different perspectives. All set, and then like going further into like the sort of Italian supermodels of part 5, and then sort of a weird combination of that in part 6. As you said, you look at Araki, you can see just how like him as a person evolved throughout, and like where like general idea of like each part, as opposed to like the Stardust Crusade and Odyssey. Part 4 is Diamond is Unbreaking, sort of like a mystery / horror. Part 5 is this gangster movie, and then part 6 is this prison mystery.
Yeah, and even in the evolution of the stand's powers, like from tarot cards to the mystery to scientific concepts, like you can constantly see what's influencing him in his life, what he's going through at these points in his life. The emphasis on his belief of male beauty, as you said, Lester, from the 80s sort of hyper masculine, muscular male individuals to the more slender, beautiful faced characters in part 5 and in part 7, where he even starts giving the male characters lipstick because he's trying to I looked into an interview, and he even said that he began to study male beauty, and it shows because he started to appreciate it. You can see his appreciation in music. Like, that's the kind of stuff where when I look at the writing and I'm like, that's the kind of stuff where I say, okay, this is unique. This is, something I really want to engage with, because I'm engaging with the author. I'm learning about them, their head, their view of the world, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think when it comes to any kind of medium and stuff, that's what makes them stand out compared to everything else. Because like everything else is just, it's table dressing. It's all stuff we only have a certain spectrum of, I think I said this, we only have a certain spectrum of emotion. Those kind of emotions are expressed in one.
I think you started.
The only thing you can. I mean, okay, sorry. The only thing you really bring to the table in terms of originality for sure is your own perspective, your own personal take on those flavor of emotions in how you portray them and how you see things. So yeah.
Right. Like that's why I'll never really dismiss something based on whether or not I feel the story is mature for the age that I'm at, or it's particularly for an adult or whatever. I can't do it because I've been proven wrong on that subject long before I even reached the age I was at now. I've been proved wrong on that subject too many times before, and I don't necessarily want to be proven wrong at this point. I just don't want to lie to myself and others right about now, because that's where I'm at right now. It's like, look, even when your project is a complete dumpster fire or a failure, it's not for me to it's not for me to walk up to you and tell you that your project failed because it was not mature enough. I can't do that. I just don't think that's fair to anyone. Like, so this is probably the part where I'm going to mention that one show that I know everyone and their mothers hates, but I'll probably save that for next week. I feel that we've kind of veered so far from that conversation now to where we are right now. Well, unless we plan to have the world building conversation, then we can talk about it.
I feel like the world building conversation might end up being just as long as this one, if not longer.
Yeah.
I feel
we might need to save that. We might need to save that for next time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like, I'll bring up that show then, because like that world building subject, I feel is like a pitfall in itself that a lot more people do need to talk about. Like, like to just kind of lay the groundwork for it. Like the idea of building your world so that it stands out from others, it is something that you should consider. Yes, but the problem is that when your world building is so massive to the point where you actually force your novel to have nearly all of these obscure aspects of your world that are just not relevant to the moment. I've seen this happen before, and I'm not just talking about with other people. I have done this myself. I had an encyclopedia of my world's building before I even finished the 3rd chapter. I'm not joking about that, by the way. Like, I had, like, how these stations work, how these elevators work. Like, I had, like, pages upon pages of this, and barely 2% of that ever got into the original novel.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's the main reason I brought up, because it's like, it's one of them ones, isn't it, where it's like, yeah, like, essentially, the writer should know what's in the world than the reader. That's kind of a given. I think you need to have enough knowledge to comfortably be able to, like, so you comfortably be able to like, okay, this is how this is how all these things work. How can I combine it to make something? You need enough information. Beyond that, and then also I think when it comes to like, I guess I'll hold off on building it. But yeah, there is this. You don't necessarily need to know everything, because I think as writers, that's just our main thing is we should at least know 50% of most things, and then the things we're focusing on, those things we probably like will take more expertise on, because as writers we kind of have to kind of know a bit of everything, especially if you're building a world. So, but again, we don't need to be experts on everything necessarily. But yeah, well, I don't know. We'll save it all for things.
So that was for next time.
Yeah. Can't wait.
So, does anybody have any closing thoughts?
We can go one by one, I think.
Yeah, I pretty much said my piece.
Okay.
Yeah, most part. I think I just said repeat what I said already.
Yeah.
I think I had something else. I guess I was going to ask when was like maybe the first time you kind of made that realization.
Which one?
You know, being at, like, you know, maybe watching the media and you realize, just because it's a kids show doesn't mean it's, you know, can't watch it when I'm growing up, sort of. Like, when was the first time you kind of made that realization? Because I have one time which
go ahead.
Actually, honestly, I've never, like, because I've essentially been in it, I've never actually thought of that. I've always enjoyed kids shows, and that's just never changed for me.
Like, because like when you have media out there like Avatar and and Star Wars, the Clone Wars especially, I don't feel you in good faith can just have this opinion that just because it's a kid's show, it just can't automatically accomplish anything. Especially the Clone Wars, when you go through all of it, like I have recently.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that show. Yeah, the thing is, like, my family won't. A lot of my family will not watch it because it is animation, and there's no way I could change their minds, but I'm just sad because they are missing out on a lot.
Yeah. And then the sad thing is that when we end up segregating cartoons based on whether or not they're for kids or adults, because a lot of people really do end up missing out on a lot because of that perception by itself. Like, oh, animation is fundamentally for children. Me as an animu and hentai watcher be like
about that. Yeah, it's funny. It's a really good cultural thing, because in Japan it's not really that prevalent. It's more
it really isn't
thing. So it's really a Western answer. But far as my life, it's more of a Western idea.
In the UK, it's definitely like there's our animation.
Yeah,
is generally like non-existent.
Yeah, true. Yeah. It's funny because I remember I had my mum watch a few shows. I think I watched like Death Note. She liked Death Note. But it's funny, like something crazy will happen in there or something. But I got used to it by this point. She'd be like, "But this is meant to be like a cartoon."
Yeah, I think.
For me, it was more like it was. I guess it didn't hit me till I reached a certain age. Like when I grew up, it was my dad who introduced me into video games, and he would always play games with me, like Super Mario Sunshine or the Wind Waker, or even Super Mario Odyssey, which is still probably my favorite platformer of all time. And when I realized that as I got older and I was in college and I saw the amount that people tried to impress others based off the things that they did, and I sort of was just never pressed to like certain things just because other people did, and I realized that a lot of things that I did were things that I still did when I was younger. It was kind of when I realized it, because my dad is who got me into a lot of things. My dad is the one who watched the Clone Wars with me on Saturday mornings because he was genuinely interested in that kind of stuff. Because he never really cared about whether this is, kid stuff or not. It's about, is it entertaining to me? And that's when I it kind of clicked when I got older. I was like, yeah, it's pretty much, doing things that I enjoy for myself. And I guess I was about 20 years old when I realized that.
Okay, yeah. For me, to be fair, I was quite young, so I did it affected me more different ways. Never really talked about it outside of like my circle of people, and that never really happened until I was. But like when I was really young, I remember I had this. Oh, at some point, I'm just like cartoons like these, like are not going to be too interesting. Like this is before anime, so I think maybe it was kind of more easier for me to make this assumption. But it's funny, like not until I watch, when I say cartoons, most cartoons, but then I think especially like I think last time I watched Disney around that time I was probably like 6 or 7. So by this point I was 11, so I was still quite young. But I remember like making assumption, at some point this is just I'm just not going to be interested. And now there was this one movie, can't remember how. Tigger movie.
Your voice is cutting up a bit.
Why did you bring that up?
I heard the Tigger movie.
The pain. I am in physical pain right now.
Yeah, I remember. So I remember around this time was where my cynicalness on that, my idea on that was really like I was really thinking, that's the point. It's not gonna be interesting. So I thought, okay, well, I don't know. I think I was really bored. I thought, okay, let me just watch it, and damn, it was that was
emotional damage.
Literally, it just hit me in the feels. I said, this is bloody beautiful. Damn, like and in my head, I think at the time, because I still had the idea of maybe everyone else societally won't really agree with it. So I'm heading, well, if I'm gonna have to be, someone who likes this stuff at, when I'm older, then so be it. That's kind of just how I took it. And so I was just like, I enjoy the stuff, but I never really talked about it right in school and that stuff, because I just felt like I could be wrong, but I just felt like it'll be like, oh, you watch Disney stuff, haha. I don't know. It's like,
boy, I got some feelings on that. But but the thing is, I gotta apply a caveat to that though. I am not a Disney stan by any stretch of the imagination. I've got nothing but misgivings for Disney, but I just don't ride on this hating Disney is always morally correct spiel that I see a lot of people do nowadays. I can't do that. Look, if I had all the energy to constantly shake my fist at Disney every time I had a problem with them, I could. That time is probably better spent actually doing something meaningful with my time. But again, don't.
That's why I don't follow drama. I've got better things to do with my life.
Yeah. Don't be like me, who sometimes jumps on Twitter while I'm at work just to drop a horrible takedown on someone. I do that on a regular basis.
I mean, it's entertaining to watch, but I do not have the energy to partake in any of that.
I have to make sure it's somewhat entertaining for the people involved, for sure, as well as to kind of push back on stupidity as often as I can, because there's a lot of stupidity. Even when you're not looking for it, you're gonna find it.
Oh yeah, believe me. Yeah,
it's Twitter. All right. Twitter's a cesspool.
Yeah, it is. Here's my closing segment, and here's my closing segment. How do you say this? Yeah. It wasn't your question, like, when did we realize, like, we could continue to enjoy these things? So in my case, I think I actively rebelled at a very young age to always like these things. I remember as like quite young, like maybe 12 to 13 years old. I looked at some adults, and they're like, or mainly I guess I looked at my parents, who never watched anime or cartoons or anything like that. They just simply think it's kids stuff, no matter what. So they never take it seriously. So I always thought, like, I will never. I mean, I respect my parents, but I will never want to become. Like, I will never want to abandon my own imagination, my own kind of like joy for these imaginative things. And I would actively rebel against that. I think, like, at a very young age, I would always say to my, like, classmates and stuff, like, man, you guys are boring, something like, I don't know, maybe, I think I was being a little bit close-minded. I think they're equally as imaginative as me, but I always had this, like, sense of, like,
that was kind of how you held on to your beliefs, basically.
Yeah, or I mean, I guess I felt like I was the only one who ever felt this way, but I'm pretty sure, like, I had a couple of friends who also enjoyed anime and stuff. It's just, I don't know, I was too close-minded to, like, think about that. But what was it? I think, like, another thing that kind of reassured me about the way I was rebelling was this one book. It's by the same guy who did Chronicles of the Spiderwick, if you ever know that novel, even if you've ever watched the film.
I haven't read the books.
Yeah, so I've watched the film. I've never read the books, but I read his, like, kind of like his new story that he wrote at the time, which was called The Search for Wandla, and it's a really good graphic novel. Mainly for kids, but it's actually really well written, and the best part is that it's like there's a lot of drawings, so there's a lot of, like, visuals, and the imagination that the author had for, like, the world that he set up is really, really cool. I mean, if you could, like, search images of it, and it's, like, really beautiful. But I remember, like, his main quote at the end of every book that he wrote. At the end of every book, he had, like, 3 words that he said, which as a quote, which was never abandon your imagination, something like that. 3-4 words. Nice. Yeah, and I like lived by that. I lived by those words, man. It's like, of course, I will never abandon my imagination. It's great.
Nah, that's powerful.
You, sir, are based.
Yes, sir.
You have earned my respect. If you didn't have it already, which you already did, but just let me know.
You have my respect.
Oh, come here, come give me a hug. Come here.
Yeah, virtual hug.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Is there anyone else with closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd say so.
Yeah, that's me done.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, hold on. Can I say something mean? Can I say something mean?
Sure.
Why not?
I hope that person who made that horrible tweet for us to comment on today really takes a good hard look at themselves and actually tries to engage with media that's not just shonen and seinen. If your engagement with media is that limited, get help. Please do us all a favor.
Touch some grass.
Or that. I was trying to avoid that, but that's actually pretty good advice.
I'll take the fall for you. I'll let them hate on me instead.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll just say, I don't know. I hope you're. Boy, it's a very bleak lineup you got there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was fun. This was fun.
It gave us a lot to talk about, though.
Mhm.
yeah, surprisingly, I don't know, like, because we usually when we do these, we end up doing going through a few topics. But yeah, this
we stuck on this whole topic all the way
Yeah.
through. Like, that's just great.
That's
I think it's because we were a lot more people, so there was a lot more diverse takes and that we could have, and obviously because we were going one by one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but yeah, true. That's good. Cool. I guess do we need an outro?
I don't think so. I think that's what the
Yeah.
closing
Yeah,
statements
that's fine,
accomplish.
Cool.
All right. So thank you again for being a part of this podcast. It was really insightful. I learned a lot from hearing you guys' perspectives as well as being able to add my own based off what you guys said.
Yeah. No, yeah,
Yeah.
same, man. This is it's
been a pleasure.
Yeah, there's another big reason why I like this, because it's not so much just you saying what you say. It's helped me kind of see other perspectives and maybe kind of realize something you maybe